Hello, welcome to the Diablo podcast. We are online at diabloinkgamers.com. I am the host Flux. I'm joined this week on the show by KayDee
Hello.
and by Rankil.
Greetings.
And we are doing all console on this episode, and I have not been playing it, but both of the guests have been playing quite a bit of it, so they're going to tell us all about the economy and the progression and the difficulty levels and basically their reactions to the console after a week of playing it, or almost a week anyway. Why don't you lead off, KayDee? You were going to get an advanced copy last Friday, and then you missed the FedEx guy or something, had to wait until Monday. Was it the longest weekend of your life?
Pretty much, especially when I knew the copy was in the mail.
So you ended up getting your advanced copy like 5 minutes early, but it was still early.
No, a day early.
Well, okay, better than nothing.
Sure.
As I told you in email, that reminds me, back when Blizzard did betas years ago, they'd actually mail them out to you. They'd mail you a DVD or a CD. It wasn't even a DVD. It was just a regular disc at the time. And of course now they do it all digitally, so it doesn't matter. But it seemed like it would always come like Friday afternoon at 3:30, and you'd miss the FedEx guy in the shower, and then you'd get this note on your door saying, you can pick it up on Monday on our office, and you're like, no. That happened with the D2 and the D2X beta to me, and other people happened with Warcraft 3 and other early ones. But so it's nice that they're carrying on that tradition in some way.
Yeah, I could choose to get it on digital, but I want to have it on the shelf anyway. So it's more fun to have it that way than digital.
And you did not get an advanced copy, Rankil. Did you pre-order? Did you digital? Did you get it launch day? And you were all
did
ready
a
to
whole
roll?
monkey of things because it's kind of I went to the game store and I'm like, hey, Diablo 3's coming out. It's a midnight release, and they just kind of looked at me blankly like, huh? And it was like, they're thinking they're like, it's already came out. Oh wait, console? Yeah, no, we're not. And I'm like, okay, so I reserved for them. Called around, tried to find, because people were saying the weekend before that, people break at Walmart or something else. They just don't care. They get a box, they open it, they put it on the shelves. But apparently everybody around me actually cares about street dates. So I had to wait to actually find a place that had a midnight release, and they matched it to a Toys R Us price because I think it was like $45. So I actually still have my copy technically waiting at the game store for me, but I just haven't gone to pick it up because I've been playing my copy that I got the midnight release, I guess. It was me and one other guy. We were there. So
that was Monday at midnight,
Yeah.
and it came out on Tuesday. So did you go home and play it for like 18 hours straight, or I mean, you played obviously you played a lot of Diablo 3 already. You just were curious about the console.
yeah, it was more, I mean, because kind of coming from, the self-found hardcore and just seeing how they were talking a lot about tweaking the drop rates and things like that to make them, without the auction house. So I was kind of thinking it would be, kind of like a self-found on crack to me, basically, because for me the drops don't seem that great, but for this it's like a world of a difference kind of coming from it. But I mean that's primarily kind of why I got it, but it was more so the reason was just to have the local multiplayer was really kind of which I haven't actually done that yet because my friends have been busy with their real life things and they couldn't come over, but hopefully soon I'll be able to doing a couch Diablo is what I call it.
You've been on the podcast previously talking about your self-found stuff in Diablo 3,
That's correct.
and obviously the console is easier. And you, KD, you were a big eager fan of Diablo 3 PC, and you haven't really been playing it all that much. I take it you've not been that happy with it, and what are you hoping for the console to be different, or why were you so eager for the console after you haven't been that happy with the PC?
I was quite happy at the beginning, but I got pretty fed up with all the grinding Paragon levels and not finding that good of items. So I turned to other games.
Do you play a lot of console normally, or are you mostly a PC gamer?
I'd say I'm mostly a console gamer, but I play quite a lot of PC at the same time.
So what did you think when you first started playing it, KD? Give us a minute of what your first reactions were and how it compared to the PC, just in very general terms.
My first reactions was the controls were really, really tight at least for the monk and barbarian. Those controls are almost flawless. Yeah, I found myself staring at the controller too much just to find my bearings and not shooting that much. But the auto targeting is pretty good, but you have to spend a lot of time moving around more so than you do on the PC version because it's so easy to target mobs from a distance with the mouse.
What did you think about your first impression, Rankil, and the controls?
Well, I actually had my goal was just to go straight to hardcore, so I had to make a level 10 demon hunter. So I'm like, well, okay, I'm gonna, they have their new what is it? It's the easy, medium, hard, and then the 5 master levels, which I guess apparently the way they coincide is it's like easy is zero, monster power 0, medium is monster power 2, hard was monster power 4, and then monster power 6 is master 1, and then it just goes incremental up to 10. So, I've leveled monster power 10, self found, a demon hunter even at that in hardcore. So I was just, and I'm thinking, okay, well, I can just bump up the difficulty, get some experience, and grind out these first 10 levels so I can start in hardcore. Well, I started out in hard, and I went through, and I was kind of getting used to the controls. And I'm like, this is kind of clunky, whatever. So got through the first quest at the gate, go into the inn, and I died. And I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, these guys are really hitting hard for some odd reason, and I don't know.
Good thing you were softcore, huh?
Yeah, and I was, and then so like continued on, did the run for it at the gate, started going through, and the wretched mothers, they were just destroying me. And I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, I've done this on the PC. I am not this bad of a player. And so I'm getting confused, and I'm looking at it, and then I'm like shooting at the guys, and I'm looking at how much life I'm chipping away at them, and I'm like, this is not, setting on hard, which should be monster power 4 on normal nightmare hell. And I'm looking at it, and this isn't this isn't the way that it normally scales with it. And then I was kind of thinking about it, which later on I found out when I was playing on like Act 4, I switched into hell I was in Act 4, went to hard to try and just bump up the difficulty or whatever. So first I found out you don't get bonus experience when you go to medium or hard. It's only when you go to the master levels. But then as far as normal nightmare hell, there isn't that separate monster power chart. I think they just take the whole inferno chart and they apply it to normal nightmare in hell, because it was normally like I was one-shotting those corrupted growths when I was playing, and then I switched to hard and it took me 9 shots to kill him. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, so which level has 900%, or whatever life or something along the lines of it, and I'm like, no, this is actual, like, this is monster power 4 inferno. This isn't I think at that time I was playing master 1 actually, because I was trying to get more experience. And but yeah, it was like, I mean, I think that's what they do, is they just don't have that normal nightmare hell, where the things are pretty weak. So people who are going to go in thinking, oh yeah, I've done monster power 10, and it's like, I mean, you're talking what, 3,400, it'll be doing twice as much damage, and the monsters have like upon more and more life, than they normally do. So yeah,
Well, the really big difference in Hell is they do a lot more damage to, I mean, in Inferno.
yeah,
I mean, if people are not following this, we should say Monster Power differs between normal Nightmare and Hell and Inferno.
hmm
And Inferno, it scales up a lot more in terms of the bonuses you get, in terms of gold find and stuff. This is on the PC version. And also the monsters, the hit points and their damage goes up a lot more. So MP10 on normal is much less of a difficulty boost than MP10 on Inferno.
yeah. I think the normal
And you're
nightmare
saying you
hell.
think on the console it's all just the same.
Yeah, the normal Nightmare Hell is 400% monster life and 200% damage. And I mean, by putting it when I started out on hard, I mean, it should have been, the guys have like twice as much damage or twice as much health or something, and do like a mediocre amount of damage. They shouldn't be one-shotting me with Wretched Mother Breath space, the spitballs that they do. So it's really ramped up, at least for if you want to choose to make, which always I kind of saw a thing too, is saying like, well, Monster Power 10 was, I mean, it was tough and it was difficult, but still kind of the problem that you get of those lower ones is that hit point scaling though is just ridiculous. So I guess it's kind of easier to make yourself a good way of, if you really want to ramp it up and make it really hard, I mean, you can do that. So that's kind of, I guess, a good thing. But yeah, it just took a while for me to get. I started out hardcore with a witch doctor. Took me still a while to get used to the controls. It's the whole, I was trying to like acid cloud on stuff, and sometimes like the ranged, especially when you're doing like if you're doing something like shooting splinter dart, it just comes straight out your character and you just point in the direction. But when I was dropping acid clouds on guys, I would kind of notice that it has a tendency to target guys further away from you. So if you had guys that were right in front of your face, and then there was a guy that was kind of off to the edge of the screen, it would drop it on the guy off the edge of the screen instead of the guy in front of you. But as far as for most of it, though, I mean, there's like a hard, you hold it's the left one trigger or whatever it is, or left trigger, and it holds onto the target that you are. Because I was actually wondering how difficult it was going to be to kite, because I mean, when I'm doing it on PC, it's like a constant right left motion of moving the mouse pointer at the guy and then away to keep yourself moving around. But for this, it's just like you hold down the target that you want to target on. Once they're targeted, you just walk away, hit your button, and the guy automatically turns around, shoots whatever it is, and then continues back on the direction that you were. So it's really clever on how they did that as far as the targeting stuff. And I mean, it is the best that you can get because you can't get that depth from your character. It's more of just a radial direction that you're shooting stuff, and then it makes an assumption of which guy you should, that you're shooting at. But yeah, I mean, other than that, it was the UI took a while to get used to. I still think overall, control wise, I like the keyboard and mouse better. But I mean, especially for going through like the UI and being able to see all the stuff, because I think you only see three pieces of gear or so at a time in your inventory. So it's kind of for trying to do an entire inventory management. It's kind of clunky, but still, I think for what they did and for the console, it was actually beyond kind of my expectations of what I was. I thought it was going to be super clunky and terrible, but once you get used to it, I mean, I'm banging through, come to town, move around, switch gear, things like that, and change the slots. So, I mean, how they did it is probably the best that you could get on the console, I would think.
Yeah, especially when you saw the screenshots before launch, how the UI looked. It looked really strange, but it works pretty good when you're switching gears. That you only see the gear for that slot. But my main concern is you don't see you don't get to get the numbers when you change gear to see how much difference it is, like with weapons. If it's one damage more or 1,000 damage more, you only see the arrows pointing up or down. So it's quite annoying.
Yeah, it's weird because sometimes you look at things and they're both two arrows, but it might even be like a couple thousand damage difference or so. And it's not until you actually equip the items that you can see the differences. And there's no way, like even when you turned on, like I turned on all the elective mode and all those other like
Yeah.
advanced tooltips, and it doesn't show. There's no one that shows an exact defined set on there, for how much the actual value is.
Yeah, because I played it for an hour at Blizzard when I was there visiting a couple months ago, and it was immediately the controls were fun. I played a demon hunter, and also I played a barbarian just to try ranged and not ranged. And the thing that kept was freaking me out, partially it was because we were playing characters from the demo build for Gamescom or whatever the event they just recently had it at PAX East or something. And I kept wanting to point. I didn't know what all my skills were, because I hadn't selected them. It was pre-made characters, right? And you'd see them on your hotbar, and I would just go to move the mouse down there to see what the hover was, and it's like I can't move this. I have no way to see what my skills are, and the same thing I was getting with inventory. I just felt kind of handcuffed, where I would pick something up, and I'm like, where did it go? How do I open the inventory window? And of course, that was because I was playing it for 20 minutes, at Blizzard while talking to developers and stuff. So
Yeah, it's not something that you
you
can
get used to it, I
necessarily.
guess, right?
Well, I mean, if you start off and you've never played, on PC, going into the console, you'll get used to it and it won't be. But if you're playing from PC going into console, it's definitely going to be clunky. But after a while of just kind of getting used to it, it becomes kind of just a second nature, really. I mean, it's like any game, really. You start out, you're unfamiliar with the UI and how things work, and before you know it, you can, do everything with your eyes closed practically.
Yeah.
You said you didn't like the controls that much at first, Katie. Have you gotten used to them? Are you playing ranged attackers, or are you going? I think you're playing mostly a monk, right? So you don't really notice the targeting issues.
No, made my Demon Hunter up to Skeleton King before I said let's do the monk instead. So I've been playing my monk from then on because I like how fast the game feels when it's so much zoomed in compared to the PC. The game feels faster, but I don't think it is faster. It's almost like you have movement speed only at 12. It feels like you're moving speed 20 on the PC.
Because you see less of the screen.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah,
You do feel like you're moving, like especially when you get movement speed shrines. Like I feel like I have rocket boots on or something. So
yeah, especially with the Fist of Thunder with a teleport rune. You're basically just Benny Hilling all over the place. Go from one place to another. It's so fast. That's why I like the controls for the monk because they're so tight.
Blizzard highly recommended. The developers when I was at Blizzard said you got to try a barbarian use whirlwind because it's really fun to use it with the direct control, and I found it very fun because you just push the button, you push the joystick or thumb pad or the hell they call them, and you just move the direction you push it. It feels very much like you're connected to it, almost like a racing game or something like that. And I found that almost just running around sometimes. I mean, just running up and down stairways and turning corners. It's really fun just to watch your character. You feel more directly connected with the thumb pad than you do with a mouse, just for basic movement stuff. Does the thrill of that last, or you guys just get used to it? It's like, eh.
No, it definitely is. I mean, compared to the PC, it plays very different because of that direct control of your character. I mean, like for me, I actually rebound spacebar on PC, and that's my move command. So I pretty much hold my thumb down the entire time that I'm playing almost, and I just point around, and then my guy moves around, and I can, it. If you haven't used the move command on the PC, anyone who's listening to this, like I highly suggest find a way to bind it to something because when you get like stuck in between some guys and you're trying to like snake your way through stuff, you can't do that with a left click. And it's kind of the same way with a console is that you can snake yourself through the guys and it's something that you just, if you're not used to that on the PC, it feels nice to be like, "Oh, I'm trapped. Oh wait, I can snake through here without, you just keep punching the guy if you're trying to snake between that small gap." So, and then the evade mechanic is that's also kind of interesting too. Is like I thought it was going to be, like you have like complete immunity frames, and then you can like click the direction you can go through guys. So if you're stuck in a corner or whatever, but it's not.
Yeah,
It's not
nothing
like
like that.
no, it's not like Vault where you don't like if you roll into a group of guys, you get stopped by the guys. And I ended up, I was like in a corner one time with my witch doctor, and I'm like, I'm just gonna roll. Oh gosh, can't. And I'm like, I start panicking because my guy was stuck in there. But then I'm like, oh wait, I can just move around the guys, with a controller. So, I mean, it just kind
You
of
could try just killing them too, by the way.
yeah. Well,
Just like monsters, just kill them. It really works well, I find.
but it's just kind of like the way that when you're playing it, I mean, it does even though it is this, it's the same game, but just the controllers almost to me make it feel like it's kind of just a different game because just the way that you're playing with. I mean, it'd be like the same thing of I don't know. I'm trying to think of like, it'd be like driving a car basically with a steering wheel as opposed to playing with a controller, like playing racing games. It's like it's the same game, but it feels completely different either way, and just that's the best way that I can at least say.
Yeah,
Yeah, so yeah, I'll ask you in a second, Katie. But I mean, the evade control, if people don't know what the console is, it's on your right. You have two thumb pads, right? It's the right thumb pad, and you can roll. It's like a little drop and roll thing that goes what, like, I mean, I don't know, 7 yards, 8 yards.
Yeah, but it's
I mean,
not.
yeah, it's not. Yeah, vault's like 40 yards. I
But
mean,
it's
it's
not
it's a
even like an
short
increased
range.
speed or any like I see a lot of guys who are doing streams and they're just moving everywhere with it. Like it kind of
Yeah.
like it feels like I guess they might just be doing it because it just looks cool and they're not used to it. But it definitely doesn't make you move faster or anything else. It almost seems like the initial like jump out of the way, that's quicker to get you like to the area of where you need to be, but then like the roll slows you back down. So overall, I think the entire distance that you traveled would be the same if you were walking. It just kind of like, it has this like quick move, then a roll, and then quick move, then a roll type thing.
yeah,
Yeah, I liked using it. I played with it a lot. No, I was doing, especially when I was playing a demon hunter. I really noticed it was good for positioning. You could keep shooting to the left, and you could roll right and shoot left and roll back and whatever.
Hmm.
And the animation seemed really good. I mean, if you rolled forward, there wasn't really a pause, but if you tried to roll the opposite direction that you were running, he would do a little hop first. And have you been using? You're playing mostly a monk, Katie. Are you using? Do you find yourself using evade much? And it doesn't actually evade anything. They should have probably just called it roll or something, right?
yeah. I didn't use it during my playthrough on normal. I'm starting to use it more and more on nightmare now. Get used to roll around, especially when you get faced by with mortars. That's a great. You can roll out of that pretty quick, but as you said, you can easily just walk away from it at the same time. So
And you can't pass through stuff. You just roll into the monster's legs, but you can break barrels and stuff with it.
Yeah, that's
So
actually awesome to do. Like
yeah, good.
those areas, and you just roll through like entire ones, or even doors that are breakable. You just barrel through them, and you feel like you're like in a action movie or something, and like bust through the room, and you're like, "Honey, I'm home," and then just lay waste to them.
Just do a
yeah,
barrel roll.
it seemed like it was really an ideal thing for using a range attacker because it was really useful to reposition yourself. Because you're used to it in the PC. You click on the bottom right, then you move your mouse back to the top left to shoot at something. If you're running away from something like that. But in this, you didn't have to move your normal movement targeting thing at all because you just keep that pointing where you wanted to, and you could evade and move in any direction. It was really good for sidestepping and stuff. But I don't know if you'd even get that much use out of it with a melee class. But I guess as KD said, it's good for little side positions, getting out of ground effects, AOE stuff.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
I've even like in Act 4, you know how when you're walking down those pathways and those guys kind of shoot that, I don't even know what they would call it, but it's that kind of like flame, path thing, and it comes like down, but then the other side is open. Like I'm just moving in the direction and I tap side to side, and he does like a side barrel roll, goes to the other side, and then doesn't get hit by the stuff. And so it's just like those little position things it's even good for.
People have asked if that could be brought on the PC, and Blizzard says no, it's not. It's something just for the console to give it more of an action-y feel.
I honestly
Can you
don't
guys imagine if it was on the
I
PC?
honestly
Would
don't
you
know
use
how
it?
you would. I mean, because you think about it, like you were saying, on the PC, you got to keep clicking around all these different directions. So it's almost you're taking the motion of moving your mouse and pointing it to where you would want to roll. You might as well just click there instead of hitting some other button. So it's kind of like, you know, it might be clunky. I mean, you could maybe add it, but it'd just be another button for you to be hitting on the keyboard. You know, like you'd hit Control or something else like that to do
Yeah,
it.
but you don't have time to push that button on the PC.
Yeah, I don't think that because it's more the instantaneous that you have it. Like you don't have to position a mouse and then hit a button. It's just like, oh, I need to move over that way, and then your right finger is right there and automatically doing it. It's kind of
So
almost
if
like a
you had it on the
reflex.
PC, you'd need it like a WASD thing on the PC, where if you hit the keys, you would automatically roll in that direction. But then obviously it would be only 4 or 8
Yeah,
directions. You couldn't do it in infinite directions.
I mean, I also thought too that originally the controls of the game. I don't know if any of you ever played a game called Crimson Land. Um, and that was where you had direct control of your character, but then this is before they actually had that evade command that was in there. And I thought that you were aiming with the right analog stick, but you were moving with the left. So it was kind of this like you could keep like walking and then just keep firing or something as you were hitting in the direction. But then when I found out that they changed the way that it was to to have this where the evade and then the directional stuff or whatever. But
So the biggest thing that people have been noticing, people especially who are not playing the console, is people are calling it Loot 1.5. And obviously you're finding a lot more legendaries. You're getting items as rewards for finishing quests, which are blue to start with, and you start getting rare ones after a little higher levels. Someone is hacking up a lung.
Sorry.
And so also obviously you're noticing this Rankil because you've done self-found and you sent me an email that I quoted in the forum and you said your witch doctor at like level 58 had what like 75k hit points and like 40k DPS or something.
yeah.
And that was like both of those were like 10 times higher than you would see. Okay, not 10 times, but a lot higher than you would see in the PC
Well,
version.
yeah, that's like that's the level of my character. That's a level 42 Paragon character, basically. So and that's not even that's 42 Paragon after another 41 Paragon has died, plus playing. I mean, that's maybe 600 hours of hardcore Inferno play in order for me to
And
get
that's
to
on the
that level.
PC. So you're
Yeah,
saying, yeah, so you're saying your level 41 Paragon on the PC is like equivalent to your level 58 on the console
yeah, just about.
from one pass.
Yeah, not. I
Have
mean,
you
not
been a
even.
lot?
I wasn't even 60 yet, and that's the thing. So
Have you got a lot of your gear from the RMAH on the console, or did you actually find it yourself?
yeah. No, I sold my soul to the devil, and he ended up dropping. No, I mean, out of what I've played, I've gone through. I did a full clear of the game, and then I did just to get through so I could open up all the quests. I kept continuing on easy difficulty just to go through cleared Inferno, and then I tried out one, the standard now the Act One farming run on Master One actually, so I was able to jump directly into Master One. My character doesn't have lifesteal as a hardcore character, which was that's another thing that amazes me. But after like all is said and done, my character's sitting at 125,000 damage and then like 95k life, and then
And
600 something resist all or whatever. I mean, it's
and what level is that?
oh gosh, I'm like only a few paragons old basically.
So you're like Paragon 5 or something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah, something like
And you've
that.
got 125,000 hit points. Well, that's
No, well,
pretty good for.
125,000 damage and then like 95,000 hit
Well,
points, but
okay,
still,
yeah, either one of those is
yeah.
pretty good for. And so, how did you feel about the Loot 1.5 KD as you were playing through? I mean, you were noticing much more fun stuff to find.
Yeah, basically every fifth or sixth item has been an upgrade, even if there was a magic item in the beginning. But the way they're throwing legendaries at you is insane. Even though there's not top level legendaries, there are still legendaries at least each 40 minutes. In some cases, you have 5 or 6 in an hour.
And do you have any magic find or like 10% or something? I mean, nothing, right?
Mm,
Yeah, nothing.
40% magic find.
Yeah, it's barely anything really, and you just
Yeah.
it's kind of
So, what
like
do you
once
think
you
it'll
get
be
to
like if you?
Act
What do you?
Two, you start seeing it. I mean, it's kind of the same thing in the PC. Like you don't really see anything in Act One normal because I mean, I think there's very few that were actually that low level. But once you start getting into Act Two, you start seeing maybe a couple, but then like Act 3, it seems like the floodgate just opens up, and that's when you start seeing them come in a lot. So
Yeah,
This isn't normal. I mean, most
yeah.
people don't. You don't
yeah,
see them. I mean, I just recently did a new monk in hardcore on the PC from 1 to 60. I didn't find a single legendary.
yeah,
I found my first legendary at like Paragon 3. So,
yeah. I mean, I kept track
and
of
you found
mine.
what, like 30?
Well, yeah, I kept track of mine. I mean, so again, through that, go one full clear through Inferno and then one farming run, and I found 48 legendaries. That includes like a few patterns that I found too. But I mean, but still, a pattern, even finding a pattern is far rarer than
Yeah. So,
finding an actual
so you mean the
legendary.
crafting legendary
Yeah, I
recipes?
found 3 crafting legendary patterns.
Have you
So
ever seen one of those in the PC?
I've seen 2 actually. So, but
Well, you're way ahead of the curve. I've
yeah,
never
oh, I
seen one.
know.
I'm well over 1,000 hours, most of that in Inferno,
Yeah,
and I've never found a single crafting
yeah. Like
plan. I
crafting
mean,
plans,
the legendaries.
crafting plans are like the big thing to find. So.
Well, you're gonna get rich in the RMEH though, aren't
Yeah.
you?
Oh, I'm gonna sell.
Are those selling good on the auction house?
I'm right now. I'm listing everything on D2JSP, and they're just
Yeah,
giving me millions of forum gold.
yeah, that'll come in real handy on a
Yeah,
console.
yeah.
And plus you can just back up your characters from the zip drive, and you can just sell them all again. So,
I think I've already
cha-ching.
seen posts and stuff of people doing like hex editing and things like that, and
Oh yeah,
they
of
have
course.
the doing the Hellfire ring mats, and they have like 6 million of them in their stash with like billions of gold. So I mean, it's like I was originally trying to go for like I was doing just like a stream. I've been streaming the whole time I've been playing my console stuff, and I was kind of thinking of if there is some sort of like world firsty legit like hardcore first to clear or first to infern or Paragon or something like that. But then like the more that I'm just kind of looking at it, and I'm like like anyone can basically claim to something of that, and it's just kind of like so now I'm just more into playing it instead of but it's still, I mean, it's fun. It's not like I need a race of something in order to enjoy the game. It's just I usually personally
Yes, you
I
do.
like
You wanted a
I
race.
I do like races. I do like a lot of those hardcore leveling races, things like that, which I really, as much as everyone always says with the PoE is better type thing, I really hope that they put in some even like mini ladders, like those weekly. It's kind of like Warcraft 3. They had those weekend tournaments and stuff like that. Like if they have some sort of weekend, it's like oh barbarians only or something, but
So how are you doing on the overall KD? How far have you gotten, and are you happy with the progression? Is it getting too easy yet?
It was too easy until I cranked it up to MP6. I'm halfway to Act 1 on Nightmare at the moment. All my gear is legendary, except my bracers that I crafted.
Yeah, so Blizzard said that it would be they would make the console much easier to find better gear. Obviously, the legendaries drop a lot more, and they also said you'll be able to buy rares from the NPCs, and the crafting will be better. Have you noticed the crafting is improving, KD? And or are you shopping any? Are you finding everything from drops?
I crafted quite a bit of items, and I found that both the loot and the crafts is it's smart targeted against your character. So most of my items I get it's very high on dexterity, and not so much strength. While on
With
the
your monk, this is.
yeah, and while on the PC I could craft with a monk and got intelligence or strength and whatnot for my crafting. But now it's very targeted to your character, so that's pretty good.
Where does your gear come from, Rankil? Fines versus
Pretty
purchasing
pretty much
versus
it's
crafting?
actually all been fines because as I was leveling up, I made a choice to level up the jeweler instead of leveling up the blacksmith because I was feeling that getting gems in my helms and weapons would have been far more important. Um, which I mean, it kind of I guess was. I just when I hit Inferno, I finally leveled them all up and got them up to max level. But like the crafting for the cost for upgrading gems is just dirt cheap. I mean, I think like the Radiant Star gems are like 20,000 gold to do, and they take every tier only takes 2. It never jumps up to 3. So I mean, you'll see. And I would say that I know what the marquee price is, but I got a marquee pattern, and then my game locked up like a couple rooms later or something in it, and I ended up losing the drop on it. And I was just like, no. And it was a marquee amethyst too, so for hardcore, it's a nice thing to have.
Are you anywhere near having enough gems to make a marquee?
No, I've
Because
made
that would take you like I mean that's like almost impossible just self found in the PC version. I mean you need like 6,800 tomes of secret or something.
Yeah, well, I'm at I'm trying to think because I've got a few stars already on my character. don't think I've made anything beyond that.
Star's a long way from marquee, though,
Yeah,
man.
but I mean, I've got a few stars, and I mean, I know that I'm not going to have like enough for it or whatever. I mean, but that is definitely it's one of those. I mean, I think I've seen some guys too. You know, every once in a while I drop onto streams and see some other stuff because I was actually gone for the weekend, so I was able to at least peek in and kind of check some stuff. And I saw some guys with maybe, I think they were flawless stars or something like that. Maybe I don't know if I saw any perfect stars on guys. So I think it's definitely not the gold or the tomes that are going to limit you because you even get tomes in Act 4 Hell difficulty. I mean, you actually well even for drops you were getting like I got a 1600 DPS Messerschmitt's Reaver with 500 Vit and 500 Int in Act 4 Hell, which I threw that on my Enchantress, and now she has like 45,000 damage, which I've never even had an Enchantress that's done 45,000 damage. It's like my Enchantress does more damage than my character on the PC right now. So
Well, why don't you put her in charge?
I should, but I was saying something, and someone's like, "Why are you putting anything on? You know, why would you put anything on? You know, your followers? They do, you know, no damage or anything else." I'm like, I don't know about you, but my follower, you know, when I had my Templar or so at the time, I'm like, my Templar is doing like 30k damage and has like 200,000 life, you know, and it's like, and then my Enchantress has 45,000 damage or whatever. I'm like, that's not a percentage of my damage. That's like a good chunk of it. So,
So how much do you guys miss the auction house?
oh, I never used it, so I don't even. I mean, I use it on softcore, but
Yeah, you're
so
weird though. So how about you, KD? Are you missing the auction house? Are you happy not to have one?
It was hard at first when you're so used to jump over to the auction house and get stuff for new characters, especially buying gems and tomes and stuff. But I got used to it now because the drops are so good, so I don't bother uh, thinking about it anymore.
Are you gonna miss it for trading though? Because I mean, even once you're high level in D3 on the PC, you want to buy specific items that you want to find an item with X and Y and Z. It'll take you forever to find it, but you can just go buy it. Do you think you're gonna be limited in your builds long term? Are you saving up stuff to trade with people or what?
I think the only thing I'm really gonna miss is buying gems and tomes, not the rest. So far, I mean, I'm very early on in Act 1 Nightmare, so let's see what happens when I get to Inferno.
Well, Rankil's in Inferno, so are you? You don't use the auction house though. How is the storage issues, by the way, inventory and shared stash stuff? Have you filled it up totally already, or
to be
is it the same
honest,
size
I
as the
have
PC?
every time that I fill it up, there's a button that you hit, and I keep upgrading the stash size, and it just keeps going. Like I haven't maxed it out yet. I mean, I think it's up to the point now. It's like 200k for every 10 slots or whatever I think that it opens on it. But each piece, it's like I'm guessing it's probably the same squares that you have on the PC, but each item still only takes up one square. So you don't have like belts and gems take up one, whereas swords and armor take up two. I think everything just takes up a slot. So
So they took the slots and doubled them basically.
yeah, and no, I mean just as far as for the inventory and things like that, I mean it's not too bad. I mean I go through, I'll do a run, and then all of a sudden but I mean that's kind of the downside where I was saying where like you can't open up and see like your whole stash and your whole inventory like all at once and kind of get this good inventory management. It's just kind of I'm running around and then all of a sudden he's just like my bags are full and I'm like, oh okay, and I'm like, well I guess I gotta get rid of this. And they added actually for selling, it's a thing where you mark items as junk. So when you go to so you can go through really quick and look through all your stuff, and then anything that you don't like, you just you push down the right thumbstick, and then it ends up marking it as junk. So when you go to either the salvage or the anyone that sells, and then you just hit the right three button or whatever it is again, and it just sells or crafts everything that you marked as junk. So it's pretty clever, at least for getting rid of that. Because I couldn't imagine, really going through each individual item like sell, 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 sell. It kind of gets after you've already looked at everything, basically. So that actually would be something that you probably, I don't know if you could put it in the PC, but it probably would stop a lot of those people who you always hear those stories where they like swap their, a ring that they identified that has like thorns and some other junk stats on it with their like 6 billion gold ring, and then they end up selling that to the vendor and then leaving the game, and then people are screaming at them for it or something.
So how do you find the inventory and the management of that stuff, KD? Are you getting used to it and you're happy with it?
I'm very happy with it, but I have some same concerns that you don't get a good overall view of your items. But I love the add stuff to junk, so it makes quicker to sell or disenchant items when you get into town. Only takes a couple of seconds. Although you don't have identify all shrine at all on the console, I found that quite odd.
Well,
Since the game,
all the rares drop pre-identified
yeah,
too.
but I'm talking about legendaries.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it'd be nice to just like come to town and identify them all, because it is clunky
Yep.
to like open up your inventory, find where it was in the slot, and then identify, the one thing. So
But it's legendary. It's special.
yeah, I mean, I do. I stop what I'm doing in the middle of my run, and then I identify it. But yeah, if there was a way, like at least if you're trying to kind of grind through and get through it, it's nice to go to town and do your stuff instead of doing it kind of in the like. That's where I understand where they got rid of the what was it, the Nephalem cube and
Yeah.
the cauldron of Jordan and that stuff, was because like if you're doing all that stuff kind of in the middle of the thing, like you have almost like too many breaks that you're doing kind of thing. You just need this separation to like go to town, get take care of all the stuff that you need to do, stock up on whatever, and then go back out and do fighting stuff.
Yeah, but that's one thing that's I find really cool is when you pick up the items, you get a mini notification on the item itself if it's an upgrade or not. So you can constantly look at the items you pick up and see if it's worth going into your inventory and have a extra look at the items.
Yeah, and that's not even without going into your inventory. You just hit the D-pad up, and it cycles
Yeah,
through the last ten items that you looked at, and you can either say you want to equip it, drop it, or I think that's really it though. There's equip.
Or mark it as junk.
yeah, I
Yeah,
think you can
yeah,
mark for junk.
yeah.
So for people who haven't seen the game yet, when you find an item, it gives you even when it's as soon as you look at it on the ground, or can you hit a button to show it on the ground? You have to actually pick it up for it, and then it shows you little red or green triangles pointing up or down to know if it's an upgrade on various properties.
Yeah,
No,
Can you see that on the ground?
no,
Or
you
you
have
have to
to
pick it
pick
up.
it
now I
up.
pick it
Yeah.
up.
That's actually one thing. Like I like doing that on PC, at least for if there was a way that you could do is just control clicking a lot of stuff, because a lot of times I just I like a pattern drops that I don't know if I have it or not, and I control click over it, look at it, and I go, okay, that's already learned. I just don't even bother picking it up, and stuff like that. So
Yeah. Of course, on the PC, the rares aren't identified yet, so you
yeah.
have to get
Well,
them identified
yeah, the
anyway.
only
So
things that I look up, which surprisingly they sell on PC, are those balanced weapons, because people, for some odd reason, still buy them. I think they're just holding on to them until the Mystic, because they think that you're going to be able to build up a weapon that has like a base 20% attack speed on it. Um, but yeah, like those are the only thing. Like I see a balanced weapon drops and I highlight over it. I look at the attack speed rating on it, and then if it's worth, if it's like 20%, I pick it up, or if it's like 18, 19 sometimes. But yeah, like if there was a way to see the stuff on the ground, if it was already identified, that would kind of be nice, because then you don't have to worry about what to pick up. But yeah, for this, you have to pick it up in order to see that, like the instant little pop up thing to tell you if it's an upgrade or not.
I read that all of the chests and like the loose floor tiles and stuff, they just pop open when you run near them. You don't actually have to click on everything individually because you don't have a clicker, so I don't know how you would even click on them. But
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's all of those. Yeah, but like barrels, you still break. So
yeah, well, you just roll through the
yeah,
barrels though.
you do a barrel roll into a barrel.
Of
So
course, of course. So is that quicker? And I mean, I guess you have the same issues with gold pickup radius and stuff. Do you find yours, is it quicker to harvest gold and to clean up all the little clickables, or you don't really notice a difference on that?
I find it
um,
quite faster to without having to click on every body on the ground. Just having to explode on you when you get close to them.
yeah, sometimes you didn't even really notice that there was a clickable or something on there. Like I just randomly, like a tome will drop on the ground. I was like, oh, there was a body there. Okay, and
Not anymore.
yeah, and then I've got like, I don't know. I found a ridiculous thing of the deep that has like which is, even the stats on it were insane. It rolls at like over 500 the top end damage on it, which they don't do that on PC. That's even another thing, is all the stat rolls that they kind of, the maximums have, I think, been like jumped up. But
You think?
yeah,
Yeah, we've seen a lot of screenshots of items, and you sent me some of those as well. I posted those in a thing, but so it just seems like the top end mods are like what 200-300 higher potentially in the strength and the the other attributes you can get.
Yeah, it seems about that
I mean,
resists.
you haven't played that much Inferno, but
Yeah,
have
but
you noticed that is it any higher for attack speed or critical hit damage or stuff, or just the
well,
attributes that you can
I
tell?
think some people on the early pictures, because it was kind of the same thing at the Reapers of Souls, where they put up the pictures of those legendaries, and they were like, "Oh, look, it's huge amounts of damage." But then when people started looking at the stats, they saw it was like 35% crit hit damage. Um, but some the things that are weird is like the elemental or like the average damage that's added to a weapon that rolls huge, but the percent weapon damage doesn't roll. I think into double. I don't think I've seen one roll into double digits yet.
Hmm.
Like all of the like resists roll up to like over 80, so they probably roll up to 90. I've seen critical strikes roll up to like 11 on gears. So it seems like they just took kind of everything and just bumped it up a little bit. So it'd be almost like an item level 64 stats, I would think.
But the attributes are way higher though. I mean, I've seen
Yeah.
one-handed items that have like 290 and 300 vitality and
Yeah,
stuff, and
yeah,
you get 100 on that in normal.
yeah, like your main stats are, and that's probably really a big thing of the reason why I probably had so much damage at my levels was just because the main stat rolls were so big on some of the items. I mean, I was getting at level 50, I was getting a pair of gloves that had, and I think there might have been one of the ones that I sent to you, and it was like 200 int, 200 vit, like 9% attack speed, and it had life on hit on the gloves too, which I've seen life on hit rolling on rare gloves and pants. I think that at least I've seen them and paid attention to that. But so there's kind of like I don't know if there's any other new affixes or whatever that roll cross gear as opposed to the PC, but and maybe that's something that we'll see on Loot 2.0. So
Yeah, well, gloves had lifesteal in Diablo 2 expansion, so I guess that there is precedent.
yeah, yeah, and like
It
rings
was
had
only up to
like
3%. It was only
steel.
3%. It was smaller, but
Yeah.
so how do you feel about the overall items and stuff, Katie? You're not in Inferno yet, but are you looking forward to it? I mean, you seem like you're pretty. How does your character compare in power to a equivalent leveled PC character?
My gear is way better on the console player compared to the monk I did on PC at the same level.
And is that if you were self-found or even better than what you got in the auction house?
On cell phone.
Yeah, well, obviously self-found, but
It's hard to compete with the auction house.
except at the top end where you can get 400 strength on a weapon now and stuff, but
Yeah,
on a one-handed weapon. But
I found some strange rolls even on Act One normal. We had plus 35% gold find and plus 20% XP boost. I thought that was quite high for normal items. I think it was item level 5 or 6.
yeah, and that reminds me, the legendaries now have that whole thing where you can find low-level legendaries late in the game and vice versa, and the stats are scaled appropriately. And we saw one screenshot of that when they did a console thing long ago, and it was a Calamity at level 30 that was terrible. But the ones I've seen recently, like you were showing your legendaries you were finding in Hell, Rankil, and they were like gigantic. They were lower level ones that were raised up to high level, and they were like, oh my god, look at the stats on this thing.
Yeah, they did something
So,
to
so how does the overall scaling thing work that you can tell? I mean, have you found low level legendaries in Inferno that were really good?
yeah, like the well, I guess it's not I mean it's not like super low level, but I'm using some dagger. Like it's weird because like as I'm playing, I get an item and I pick it up and I mean it has crazy stats on it. And then I'm like, where does this thing drop? Or like what's the base item of this? Because I've never seen it before. Like I don't know if it's a new item or not, and but I mean and it's also the because the reverse and the other way, because like I found a Doombringer at 53 and it was 1,000 it was like a 980 damage Doombringer that and had a 200 main stat on it or something like that. So, which actually the one thing that sucks about the main stat stuff is that as a intellect class, when I get crossbows and bows, because apparently they think that they still work, apparently like I used to use a crossbow actually like on 1.0.1 on PC just because nobody wanted an intellect crossbow and they were really cheap to get 1,000 damage ones. But yeah, I get every single crossbow that I get. I even got a legendary crossbow, and it rolls intellect on it. And I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, what if I want to give this gear to a demon hunter? But then I'm thinking, I'm just gonna find even better gear probably on the demon hunter himself, themselves. So why would I even like? There's really almost like having a stash is. I mean, I guess maybe on hardcore it's worth it, but as far as for, I mean, unless maybe you're handing off between two different characters, like the Dex classes, like you get something that's Dex and hand it off to another Dex class. But it just seems to me like there's really kind of no point of like trading gear. Like you won't find a strength item, I don't know what you would find of something that's like the Doombringer that I found. I mean, it rolled strength because I think it's a base roll strength, but then it rolled intellect on it for me. So it's kind of like if you're looking for something that's specifically, well, actually, like your followers. Like I had to switch over to the Enchantress because everything I found was intellect. I didn't find anything that was strength or dexterity, so I really couldn't boost up my followers as well as I could just because of the main stat.
Because you're playing a witch
Yeah,
doctor.
and that's the thing that actually sucks about it. So, like, I would really like to actually, for hardcore, I'd like to have the Templar just to be that meat shield, standing in front and give me the resource regen. But I can't, I can use him. He can have a ton of hit points and be the tank that I want, but the fact that these stat rolls are ridiculous, like, he can have damage, but he just can't get anywhere near what I can give, with an Enchantress. So,
Yeah, so KD is doing it more intelligently because he's playing a monk. Therefore, if he finds crossbows, they'll be good for a demon hunter. So I guess you're finding good stuff for a wizard, but no one plays wizard, so it's not going to help you much. But or else a bard can just find stuff for himself, or you can save it for the crusader one day, I
the
guess.
class specific ones, though, do roll, like, I found a fist weapon and it only rolled dexterity on it. It didn't roll.
It was probably an inherent mod though.
Yeah, but that's the thing is I think when you have when you get those class specific ones, which was one of the talks in the Loot 2.0, like they didn't want quivers rolling strength on them. So I think if you ever
Yeah.
find a quiver, which actually come to think of it, I don't even know if I've ever found a quiver. I don't even think I have found a quiver. It might not have even have dropped for me, period. But I don't know.
Well, maybe they only drop for demon
Yeah,
hunters.
or
Do
maybe
you
or
know that?
maybe I
Have you
just
noticed that?
automatically sold it basically before, and never really thought of it. But
Marked as trash.
yeah.
So you haven't played to Inferno yet, Katie, but have you noticed? Are you finding gear for other characters, or are you finding crossbows that will be good for demon hunter, or just monk stuff?
Basically, most monk stuff and some stuff for my enchantress. But most of the items I pick up is dexterity.
And the main question with loot and stuff, people are wondering is how is this going to work out long term? I mean, you've only been playing it for a week, and you've already got this gigantically high stats on your main there, Rankil. Can you guys imagine after like 2 months, it'll just be won't be any fun anymore? You'll have too much good gear.
Um, the one thing that I see that's the benefit of it. I mean, I honestly I don't know because I haven't gotten. I mean, I think softcore guys, they're blowing through on the hardest difficulty that I've seen of some other stuff. But like hardcore is different because hardcore you actually have to focus on defensive as well as offensive, and you're not just going into the highest levels just to say you did it. Like you need to know that you can defeat the content in there, otherwise you're dead and you lose all your time. So. I mean, we'll see how it is, but I feel it's almost like they raise up the low end of it because you have easy, medium, hard to start the game. This is at least my point of what I think of what it is. So easy, medium, hard is what you start the game on. So in a way, when you get to Inferno, it's gearing you for Master 1, I think. Because if you were playing already on hard, like why would it and there's no extra, you don't get any extra gold find or magic find or experience boosts for, going to medium or hard. So it's kind of like if you're playing on hard, why would they make it so that you go into Inferno and you'd have to play on easy, type thing? Like it doesn't seem like you should be able to jump down. So I'm thinking the first initial is to put you in the master levels, and that's where you're doing Inferno, and then from there you start ramping yourself up. But I mean, as far as like I said, I only did one farming run, and but I think you'll eventually get to a point. I don't know where that point is, and maybe it might be that it's kind of like after a while you can get to doing the highest master level and you can get their self found within a reasonable amount of time for a typical console player, which might be, for playing some sort of RPG game is under 100 hours, I would assume, or something like that. And then maybe you can go roll other classes. Because a lot of times you see on the PC, people just play one class because they can't find gear or they can't buy gear. They don't want to buy gear for multiple classes. I had that issue in the beginning of the game. Like I was leveling all my softcore guys to clear Inferno, and it was getting expensive because I had to buy, gear for 5 classes or at least sharing between the like stats on it. But for this, I think it's more that you get a good amount of playthrough. You could go through, beat the game on the hardest difficulty, self-found, and then start another character because people say they're bored too with the game, and it's like there's 4 other classes that you can play. So,
Well, three.
well, yeah.
Nobody plays wizards.
I
So come on.
played, I played a wizard. actually quite.
No, no, you didn't. It was an
Although
illusion. That was
when
Diablo
you were
2.
talking about loot stuff and not using the auction house, like I mean, I've seen some barbs doing the spin to win whirlwind spec, but I have yet to see a critical mass wizard on the console because like that finding those gear that has the specific stats or breakpoints or whatever that you're looking for, like those builds I think almost might even get you more into playing the game to try and find those very specific items. Whereas a lot of these other builds that people are using are kind of more of just like they're just the generic catch-all that just requires any sort of stat to work, basically.
And the more the
Yeah.
better. Do you have any long-term prognostications on it, KD? You haven't played the Inferno yet, as I've said about 45 times already, because you're a wimp and you need
Just
to play
keep
more.
hurting his feelings some more, and then
Yeah, exactly. Well, he's sick of ice
isn't
heroes
that
if
the
you do
whole
that.
thing
So
where everybody talks about it's like you're either doing like Monster Power 10 or wasting your time on the PC. So
yeah, exactly. Come strong
yeah.
or go home. So are you going to start coming strong, KD? And do you have any? What is your long-term goal? You just going to get your monk to Inferno and see what happens?
Let's see how far I can come within a week before I get next thing.
It's been a week.
Yeah, but I got one more week before I get the next big thing.
Grand Theft
Yeah.
Auto? I don't even know. I saw a TV ad for that today. I didn't know when it was. So you're only playing this until you have Grand Theft Auto. Well, you're off the podcast. Never talk to you
Now
again.
I will play it back and forth some time to time, because I enjoy this quite more than the PC version at the moment. I think that's mainly because the controls are so tight and it feels so fast, and you get so much better loot. So if they fix the loot on the PC version, I'd probably go back. But I will go back when Reaper of Souls is out anyway. The yellow orbs that drops on the console version is quite cool. Nephalem Glory.
Oh yeah, I was going to ask you guys about that. Yeah, so how are those and how do they work for you?
They work quite good. I mean, it's not that much of a damage boost, but it's more like um, visual and the audio of it. Uh,
So back up a step. So people who haven't played this, so occasionally you get a yellow orb that drops, looks like a health globe, and what does it do?
increase your movement speed, and it shoots out random lightning bolts, jello, just like the wizard's skill.
And they stack, right? So if you get multiples, it increases your benefit, and it's 60 seconds, I think it
Yeah,
lasts.
the main it lasts 60 seconds, and it stacks up to 3 times. So the first one, you only see the lightning bolts here and there, but when you get to up to level 3, it starts to adding sonic booms to your attacks. So it's really loud and noisy, but it makes you feel more powerful. But I don't think the percentage of the boost is that good. But it's more like a fun thing. It's probably just a time before the PC version gets it.
So how are those in Inferno, Rankil? I mean, it seems like if you get every 60 seconds, it would last. You would never not have a stack. Are they very frequently dropped?
I mean, they stay up, and I think it's health globes too that kind of give you a little bit, kind of like the Archon type thing. It's like you get a health globe, and it gives you a little bit more time on it. I mean, honestly, I don't really notice them drop too much because I have such a large pickup range. So I kind of all of a sudden I'm just shooting lightning bolts and stuff out of my fingers, and you're hearing this like kind of charging noise, or whatever. It kind of has this gajong gajong gajong, and like you're just shooting lightning bolts all over the place and everything. And I mean, it's definitely like a fun little kind of thing to have, and it's almost one of those you try and see how long you can keep it to last. So you just want to go run into groups of guys and just try and kill more and more to keep the buff going. So it's definitely
Yeah, because I mean I play a witch doctor in Inferno, and your buffs there, gruesome feast and grim ward are like 5
yeah.
seconds, and you can keep that going for quite a while. So I'd imagine if it's 60 seconds, unless they drop really infrequently, you would just never not
Yeah, I mean
have
the
it.
problem is it's like I don't, since they really haven't come out with like a lot of details, on this, so you don't know the mechanics of it. I mean, I'm assuming it's just it's a percent drop, and it's kind of like it'd be like a rare version of a health globe. So it probably has some sort of roll effect that it figures of when it goes for the health globes, and but yeah, like as far as like when it or how often they drop or like how long do you get on the timer, because you can't put a timer, put your mouse over on it and see how long it is, like, and that's like a problem with a lot of buffs is like you go over and you look at it and you're just like, well, how much time do I have? And like I guess other stuff too, like archons can't cancel archon, So if your armor and everything else runs off, it's like, well, you can't recast it until your Archon wears off. But if you've been killing a million things, now you have a 10-minute Archon, so it's almost like you have to quit the game to reapply your armor buffs. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know on how, then that's like the kind of thing is that there's stuff that's on the PC seems like second nature that it would make sense for it to work, but then you try and do it on the console, and it's just you're like, wait, I can't do that, or I can't do it this way, and or other things too. Like there's only 3 Valor buffs instead of 5, and I don't even. Well, I guess I could go look into open up my inventory and open up my skill, but I can't like highlight over it to see if they're doing 25% times 3, or is it still the 15%, for them. And I think even from that, you
Yeah.
don't get guaranteed rares from champs. I've killed champs with 3 stacks, and I haven't gotten anything off of them. So I don't know if they just remove that, or if it's just a programming hindsight that but like for killing key wardens, that works, where you need 3 stacks in order to get the keys from them. And, but, or maybe you don't even need any stacks on them for all I know. But at least when I was killing the key wardens, they had 3. And then, but yeah, maybe for the rares, like, they didn't, or the rares and elites, they didn't go through on that table and update it that you need 5 stacks for a guaranteed rare and change it to 3. I mean, who knows? But
Yeah, it's gonna be tough if you only get 3 stacks and you need 5 for
well, it's kind of
guaranteed.
good for like changing
Never gonna get
skills.
that. I'm
It's
pretty
good
sure.
for like changing skills because if you want to change a skill, you don't have to like you don't feel so much of a burden of keeping your skill set because you have to get like 5 stacks and whatever, and you're like, oh gosh, I got to rebuild my stacks up. But like, I was changing skills when I was running through Inferno, and it didn't matter because I came up to 3 champ packs, and you get back to 3 stacks, and off you go.
Our stacks only at level 60 and above
Yeah,
still.
they're only at 60 and above, so
Simply gonna wait until Paragon 2.0 or something to get to make that
I mean,
available
that would it
everywhere.
would make sense for the, because in the Reaper of Souls where they were showing that the low level Crusader guy was gaining Nephalem stacks, so
Yeah.
it would make sense to only make it at such a lower level that you wouldn't it would give you a bonus for holding on to the skills that you have, but it wouldn't make it so much of a burden. Like there was, I think it was in the Mister Monstrosity where he said the unlimited Nephilim stacks, so you'd have like 100 stacks or something like that if whatever you did. It's like could you imagine someone leveling up? They'd never change their skills because they're just like, I'm just gonna
Yeah.
keep building this up. So
Not in that game
yeah,
anyway.
so
So any other thoughts, KD?
Yeah, I found it. They removed the timeout on the mantras. The mantra is up forever. They don't
No
no
duration,
duration
huh?
at all on them. I found that quite odd. Just a good thing. I don't have to apply them all the time.
yeah, there's no timeouts for
So
leaving
did
the
they
game
did they
either. Like so, at least for me, for like hardcore, you get yourself into a stick. I mean, which I haven't actually got myself into a sticky situation because, like, I was playing on easy, so it actually the game was giving normally like in the one podcaster you're talking about that we call it the fearsome 50s, is it? Where like
yeah.
you get to that point and you don't have resist, but now that you get all this ridiculous gear in hell difficulty, I mean it's like I think I described it as like shooting fish in a barrel with a minigun. I mean it is to a point where you're not used to being that powerful at that level, and it's just a bit strange, but I mean it's a good thing. But it's definitely just the play difference is like you start out in the beginning of the game and it's hard and difficult, but then as you start ramping up and getting that crazy gear in hell, it's just like they turned on the switch of just okay, go. They're like just go kill everything and then get to Inferno and then you can start playing the game.
So it seems like the overall difficulty they're planning on is you'll be able to self-found, be able to just mow down the equivalent of MP3 or MP4. And if you want it to be hard, you'll have to really turn up to the highest MP
Yeah,
levels, which maybe isn't a bad thing. But I mean, obviously, if you're self-found on the PC, you're lucky to do MP0 or MP1 is kind of
no,
your goal, unless
I mean
you
I've
really
gotten
save
with
up.
like with my cell phone guys. I mean I had been able to do like 6 MP6 Ubers, key runs on like 4 and 5, and then most of my like farming runs that I would do is like 3 or 4, at least that I've been up to. But that's like I said, that's like 600 hours of gameplay. I mean, I'm getting that powerful of a character in the game right now with maybe less than 50 hours. I think I have like a total of it's like a total of like 36 hours or so. I think I have of playtime.
And there's a big difference between surviving a level and really farming
Yeah.
that level. So
The one thing that with all these crazy stats And everyone's like crazy stats. I wish these were on PC and everything else. And that's kind of like the big talk about the gear. And mostly I think is the reason why people are saying the console is better is just because the loot looks better. But really, it's an apples and oranges, because they're two separate games. They're not shared economies, because they're first off on console there is really no economy. I mean, I don't even, you can't go onto the auction house, you can't list things. There's no trading channel. Um, so basically, they had to make these items ridiculous on, at least to make you feel powerful or within a reasonable amount of time be able to get to the end difficulties. But the problem that they have, they've just increased all of the same stats that we have right now. So as far as the gear depth that you have, it remains the same problem that you have on the PC. So I almost feel that as guys get to that Monster Power 10 and they have some ridiculous gear, they're doing the same thing though. They're looking for gear that has main stat, vit, all resist, crit hit damage, increased attack speed. Those are your 6 properties. That's the same stuff that they're looking for. On weapons, like doesn't have lifesteal, it's worthless. Doesn't have a socket, it's worthless. The stuff that they're getting right now, like the items that I'm looking at, it's great for my character and it gives me an upgrade. But if I'm looking at it as like an end game statistic that these guys, constantly end up looking for, that's the end. It's the same gear. So you're going to have the same issues, I think. And getting this gear ridiculously is going to get them there quicker, but it's going to be the same problems. So I don't think, you know, right now as it looks, because the gear that you're getting and everything looks better than the PC, the console does look better. But I think for the end game farming, it's going to be the same thing. I don't think there's really going to be any difference. It's just that you're going to be having a self-found character with, 500,000 damage or whatever it is, and you're looking for that. You're crafting 1,000 gloves to look for one that has 8% crit instead of the 7% crit, or whatever that you had. So
So you're claiming that just bigger numbers aren't enough to make us
no,
happy with
well,
the
it's. I
stats?
mean, at least
But
for me,
but but
looking
did,
at it,
did
like,
but they're bigger
yeah. I
numbers.
mean, it.
Bigger numbers. I'm doing air
Yeah,
quotes, so you know it's
and
serious.
it's kind of the same.
You can get 400 strength on a belt. That will cure all
Well, it's kind of the
problems.
same thing of when Inferno originally came out. The Jay Wilson, we took it and we doubled it thing. So they
Ah,
they
Jay.
came out with Inferno and they said it's going to be very hard. You can go through, you can get through Act 1 or whatever, but like you're going to farm Act 1 and then you're going to farm Act 2 and it's going to take you months to complete it. And everyone's like, "Yeah, this is going to be awesome. This is going to be fun." They get into it, it's delivered as promised, and now all of a sudden they say it's too hard. So Blizzard did a lot of kind of knee jerk reactions to things. They first made it so that you could get 61, 62, 63s in any act, because before it was you couldn't get a 63 item in Act 1. So that was fine until they said, well, it doesn't drop enough. So then they, Jay Wilson did, and they doubled the drops on that. And then they said it still wasn't enough. So then they made everything drop, as long as you were killing 63s, everything drops item level 63. So they Jay Wilson atomic bombed it, and then it was like the same thing of 400% legendary drops on trash, which led to, so all they kept doing was just increasing more and more loot. So that's kind of what they're doing in here, but instead of increasing, I mean, well, they are increasing the drop rates for legendaries, but they're increasing the stat ranges, the rolls, they're tightening them up. But I mean, almost in a way, I just think that this game, as they kept saying in interviews, that it's been consoleized, and like you're saying, KD, you're playing it until the next game that you've got coming out, and that's what I think a lot of console players are aimed for, and that's kind of why they came out with a lot of stuff like this. But I think if this came out the same way it is on the PC, you would just end up people would get bored as they get to Monster Power 10 and they'd be like, well, what do I do now? And then they'd be asking for more, quote, end game stuff, which is like, it's like, you do know this game it's a loot grind. Like, you're supposed to go and you're supposed to kill monsters over and over again to find better loot. I mean, there has to be a point where, you can't constantly get upgrades. It has to come to a point where you have a very large gap. So, but anyways, I'll
Yeah,
stand
but
off my soapbox because that's like my biggest rant about kind of the whole thing of, where everyone just thinks bigger stats and things like that. I mean, it does solve temporarily and how this looks, but I would almost think wait maybe a few weeks, and once these guys start getting to this end game stuff, and then it's just back to the same of what you see on PC, and the interest is going to probably fade. So
yeah, but that is the mantra of the console gamers in general. They only play it once, and then they
mhm.
put down the game. Put down a game. And a lot of gamers doesn't even finish the games at all. So I can see why they're increasing the loot on the console now, even without the auction house, so people could have a fun run, at least through normal.
And it's not even really through normal. Like, I mean, with hardcore, I keep leveling characters as I keep dying. So it's kind of the leveling. I mean, I actually enjoy the leveling process and PC because even on PC, although it's not as crazy as this, you still get that. It is that feeling of constant upgrades. Whereas when you get to Inferno, you're just killing the same stuff, just looking for bigger numbers to do bigger numbers as far as damage. And then, when you overcome that monster power, then you move it up to the next one. So it's kind of like, there's this. I don't know. Basically it's the same thing, just with bigger numbers to start with. So now instead of starting on Monster Power 0, you start on Monster Power 6, basically. So
Well, Blizzard has said repeatedly this is not Loot 2.0. It's just the PC version with a few adjustments, and that seems to be
yeah,
what your
yeah.
point
I
is.
hope it.
And it'll have the same ultimate problems with the item game. It'll
Yeah,
just
and that's with
people
like
even
the
get
Loot
there quicker
2.0 where
because you get such
they
better
talked
gear.
about like different affix rolls and things like that. Or having things that are specific towards builds. Like if you get weapons on them, or armor that adds to, it's like poison dart damage or something like that. And you can get every single piece with poison dart damage on it. Then you might actually do a build focused around poison dart, or some sort of like poison. If they actually fix the affix of like adding to poison damage, so it doesn't just add that much damage as poison, it actually adds to your poison damage. So you can, if there's different things, but it's just that like right now I call them like the sweet six. They stick out like a sore thumb as far as how powerful they are compared to the other affixes. So even making the sweet six even more sweet six, it doesn't solve anything. They need to bump up kind of the other things, or other affixes. Like, I mean, like other stuff for defensive where you have decreased damage from melee attacks. That in the beginning in Inferno, that was good because everyone wanted defensive, but now, nobody wants that unless it comes on like your Inna's chest, basically. I think Inna's chest comes with that. But yeah, that's what I hope the Loot 2.0 does, is it more or less balances kind of the affixes so that even if you get a weapon and and it doesn't have um it doesn't have like a percent damage, because like on the console they only roll single digits instead of up to 50%, I think it is on PC. So you're less reliant on that. That's kind of like getting a weapon with or without attack speed on it on the PC. It's not that big of a deal. So that's kind of what I think there's some stuff that they're getting right on this, but it's definitely obviously something that is going to be for PC. So, and this is kind of like now console's the beta for the PC, whereas everybody said that PC was the beta for the console. But
Well, Azure will be delighted because he's always arguing about the item stuff, and he always says just putting on bigger numbers wouldn't make any
yeah,
difference because you just raise the floor, and in 6 months everybody's in the exact same place they
yeah.
are today.
Well, you look at
And of course,
hardcore. I mean,
Blizzard
hardcore is
Well, Blizzard agrees with that.
yeah,
That's why Loot 2.0 is going to add a lot of new stuff. So, but so you're finding more legendaries and there's more variety, but they have the same stats as other items,
yeah.
just better. So,
I really still want to play the local co-op though. I'm kind of bummed that I wasn't able to play with my buddies, but that to me seems that to me just seems really fun. Is the local.
have either of you guys done any online multiplayer with it?
No, I'm still sticking to my, mainly because of all the the hacks and dupes and everything else. I have a feeling it's going to be like Diablo 1, where you join a game and everybody drops their godly plate of whales and 255 charge stabs of apocalypse, on the ground, and it's all these non-existent, fake hacked items and stuff. Like, it's kind of like I'm going back to my legit D1 roots by playing this, so
Yeah, it'd be funny if this that obviously the online only DRM thing in D3 was very unpopular, and of course we might see in a month everyone's on the console. This sucks. I want an online only mode. Everything's hacked. I can't
oh,
play
I'm sure
multiplayer.
that it wouldn't surprise
It's
me
like
if they asked for some sort of online specific economy, something out there. But the problem is that even when I don't even know on Diablo 1, did they save your characters? They were all on your client, right? Even your online
yeah,
stuff.
same as D2.
Well, no, well,
Same as
no.
D2
D2's
single player.
D2 saved your characters on the server, so that gave it a little bit more security.
On the
Yeah,
multiplayer version, there was a single
yeah,
player
yeah.
version you could do, which was
Well,
the
I'm
same
saying
thing.
D1, Diablo 1 multiplayer. Did they save your character files on Battle.net, or was that still?
There was
Yeah,
nothing like that on
yeah, because
Battle.net.
that's
It
why
was
you
all
saw
just
those
your. It was
255 charge stabs of apocalypse and stuff. But so
Yeah, you could just dupe in game. You didn't
Oh
need an
yeah,
external
yeah.
program to
The
dupe in
potion dupe
Diablo
was
1.
just no need to back up
Okay, so
USBs. Just get a bunch of potions.
yeah, so any last thought from you, KD? You're just having fun for another week, and then you're gonna go steal cars.
Nah, I had quite some fun at the moment with it. Like I said earlier, it's mainly because the loot drops feels really cool to get an upgrade all the time.
It's just a lot more fun, short term, immediate gratification, and they're not designing it for people to play it for 2,000 hours and still not have the best gear. People that don't play the console games that long generally, unless it's a Half-Life or something, or some Call of Duty, I guess, is the one people play it a billion times, but that's just the same game over and over again.
Yeah,
So they're not designing this. This is not Loot 2.0. It's not meant to be a long-term fix for anything. It's just here, play it and have a lot of fun, and then go steal cars in a week.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, for designing the game for a console, they really done a really good job, considering how the lifespan on console games are for most gamers.
Okay, guys, thanks for your time. This is the Diablo podcast. We are online at diabloinkgamers.com and Moo.
Moo.
Speaking of Moo, any secret cow levels in the console yet?
The
No,
stat, the pony staff
Whimsyshire?
takes less to make. It only requires the gemstone and wort spell, I think, and
Well,
and the
no
and
excuses
the
now.
mushroom. So you don't. I was looking for the rainbow vial of piss and the Laeric shinbone every time I went by, and then I found out later they don't exist, and I'm like, well, that's why I didn't find them.
Well, good luck finding them then.
I guess some guy was farming it like all day and he couldn't find it, and then he came on and someone was like, it doesn't. You don't need that, and he's just like, oh man. So, moo, or rather
Moo.